it says stuff.
There we go.
Hey-o! So, this is a video that we are going to be doing on relationships. Since we are in
a relationship.
And have been for,
we don't know how long.
More than a year. We got married, that's the important bit.
So this is Aspies and NTs in relationships together, generally.
So, a couple of quick facts. As you know, I'm in my mid-30s. She's in her mid-20s, something you may not know. So, this ties in. I've read some hints that maybe Aspies might do better with people that are younger than them.
By more than just 2 or 3 years.
Because developmentally you're sort of catching up. So, like, it's been theorized that like Aspie men could be just between 7 and 15 years behind the curve,
whereas the average NT man is between 2 and 5.
Well, if he's average, then he's actually right on top for men.
No, as opposed to the same age of woman in NT.
Who knows? So
that's the general thing on that is same age, male woman or male female, NT. The female is going to be 2 or 3 to 5 years ahead maturity-wise than a man.
I've tried dating women that are older. It never kind of panned out. All of my girlfriends and all of the women I slept with have all been younger. The degree, not as severe. I think, aside from her and one that was 6, 7 years younger than me, all of them have been within a few years of me.
And yeah, so first off, we want to do a shout out to David Finch.
David!
If it weren't for your book, which I devoured shortly after starting to hang out with him, and it's hang out more thoroughly than just at a coffee shop. If it wasn't for your book, I would have no idea how to understand this. None. So your anecdotes
my series helped, but as I've mentioned, I've told you on your Facebook page, without you, I wouldn't have done this series. So yeah, the series helped, but it was also inspired by you. So.
Quick blip. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm married. It's awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
And that means for those of you who haven't read his book, The Journal of Best Practices, go out and read it. We're not getting money. We're just advising that we find this useful. I've said this before on my videos. I've shown it. Again, Journal of Best Practices, David Finch. It was a New York Times bestseller. There is a reason. It took me a while to read it because oftentimes I go through a chapter and go, God, do I do this? I think I do this.
And then I read it and went, this is you, and that's you, and these are you. And he was like, really?
Yeah, and then other parts would be like, wait, you do this. I went, yeah, I'm so sorry.
But I understand it now. Anyways, so, I'm an NT, as you all know, and he is very much Aspie, as you very much know, obviously.
Series.
Aspie
a lot of
Sean.
people say, hey, you look good for 10 minutes. I'm like, yeah, there's another 23 hours and 50 minutes left in the day, dude. Just because you could, I know some runners, they can run fast for a mile, doesn't mean they're going to run fast for 8 hours.
Yeah, sprinters, marathoners, 2 totally different monsters.
Yeah, catch him in that moment. Hey, he looks quick.
Catch him at the end, not so much. So
you look great. I feel good. I'm going to go sit down now.
So this is his version of sprint.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of.
I look, and when I was diagnosed in 2002, one of the things that kept coming up was that Aspie's hid. Nowadays, we can clearly tell. Well, yeah, you can clearly tell, but when you didn't have the data, it was subtle.
Yes.
And now that you know exactly what to look for and how, not subtle.
Okay, so, topic of relationship, specifically ours, because, let's face it, that's the best data we've got since it's the longest lasting one that he's had, and it's the second longest that I've had.
Key point, I didn't get into this relationship until my early 30s, and when I mentioned that this is the longest relationship I've ever had, she looked at me weird, and I'm like, oh.
And this was over a year ago.
Yeah, I keep having to sometimes remind her, oh yeah, this is the longest.
By a lot.
You've never done this? No. Oh, because this is the longest relationship you've had.
Prior to me, I think the longest was 8
10,
weeks.
10 or 11 months.
Was it?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that one.
10
right.
or 11 months, and she's a good person, and she's nice.
I didn't say she wasn't.
No.
I didn't even hint at it.
She mentions that my exes are crazy.
Many of them are. Not all of them, but most.
And do Aspies make relationship mistakes all the time? Do I know what I screwed up in that relationship? Yes. If up until I got married, if I could have changed it, would I have? Yes. Would that have necessarily meant that we lasted? No. But if we broke up, it probably would have been a little less for dumb shit reasons that I did.
Okay, so starting out with our relationship, he and I are best friends, and this marriage would not really work if we weren't best friends, and if we weren't thoroughly attracted to each other. We are quite happy to do adult things to each other.
And we are ornery, nasty,
cantankerous,
we
bitchy.
yelled at each other earlier today.
Yeah. We tend to yell at each other rather regularly.
And
however,
that, by the way, is part of the strength of our... I wanted to get this right up. That is part of the strength of our relationship. A lot of people don't get that. Is that we built in... I don't know if it was purposefully, but it's there. We have built-in release valves. Our life can be very stressful. Her job is very stressful. So if we couldn't yell at each other, not around the kid, but if we couldn't yell at each other, it wouldn't work. Because we always apologize, we always make up, and It's never taken personally. It's just stress.
And there are times where the yelling is rather nasty and vicious, but we never...
Never goes beyond that.
Yeah.
No name calling.
It never gets to the point of violence. It never gets to the point of, I'm going to throw you off a cliff, you bitch.
Side bit for a public service announcement. If someone hits you, if someone beats you in a relationship and it's leave. And I'm not talking, well, what about the sparring ring? You know I'm not talking about the sparring ring.
And we're not talking about BDSM. That's a whole different category we are not touching.
We're not talking about play fighting. If you don't know what we're talking about, hopefully that means because you never had to experience it. Let me tell you what it means. It means when someone screams at you, raises their fist back, and slaps you hard. That's happened to me.
Or they are verbally abusive, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're here to talk about.
So just a side bit, if someone is physically abusing you...
Or mentally or emotionally,
get
out.
Help and get out. And if you need to talk to us, we're here.
Yes. We are not guidance counselors.
No.
We are not professionals for anything social.
We're just another human being on this spinning orb called Earth willing to help.
Yes. Okay, so our relationship works primarily because of friendship, trust,
yes,
lust. Not going to turn that one down.
Lust.
Lust is important.
Respect.
Respect. And let's face it,
faith.
Faith for sure. And that's not necessarily faith in some...
not a religious thing. Faith in each other. I thoroughly believe in her potential.
Yeah.
And same.
Yeah. And it's also being able to take off your mask.
Relax.
That's something
being vulnerable.
Yes, being vulnerable. You have to be able to be vulnerable with your spouse or your significant other if you're not in a spousal relationship. But especially for Aspies, if you're not comfortable in your quiet time around your spouse, you're around your spouse all the time when you're not at work or out. If you're home, you're probably with your spouse. So not being able to relax around your spouse is not a good thing. And he can tell you more about that particular one.
For me, I need alone time. I do. Conversely, I'm not employed as much as I used to be. I get rather a lot of it. So that works for me. But I know that she needs alone time. Sometimes I have actually just grabbed the keys and left the house. She's like, where are you going? I'm like, we haven't fought or anything. I'm just like, I'm giving you 2 hours alone. There's an errand that has to be run. That I'm just going to run it. I don't need you. And I'm going to go get it done. And I'm going to give you like an hour in the house alone where it's quiet. No one yelling at you. No one asking you. And she was like, what? Then she came back. I came back. She was like, I needed that. I'm like, yeah, but I'm an Aspie. I'm used to needing, like, physically needing alone time. And she's an NT, and she's not. And but sometimes she needs it too.
And there have been other times where alone time is nice and all, but he didn't regenerate spoons during that time. It wasn't until we were sitting on the couch cuddling that he started to regenerate spoons.
It's a very weird new experience.
He seems to like it, but
life's better. And for Aspies out there, marriage is incredibly difficult. Marriage will be incredibly difficult for the rest of my life. I do not perceive it getting much easier than it currently is. Clearly, I could be wrong. I've never been married before. This is the longest relationship I've had. It could get easier with time. Who knows? But it definitely, you need communication and you need honesty. You need to be truthful with each other.
Yes.
I need, when I got hurt, I didn't know if I would be able to function as well. And I had to look to her and say, I need you to look out for me, and I'm going to place complete trust in you to tell me when to slow down or stop. And that took a lot of courage on my part, because I've been burned by my parents. I've been burned by schools. I've been burned by friends. I've been burned. And every time I got burned, it got harder to trust. Humans want to trust each other. That's actually a very normal thing. Aspies more so than most. And autistics. And when we get burned, we don't know why. It just hurts. It's like acid on our soul. But I have to trust her. And she's come through. There's been a few times where I'm like, I'm going to push through. And she stopped me and went, you are not alone anymore. Stop this. And because of that trust and because of that communication, I went, but you need help. And she went, if you help me, you're going to get hurt. I would prefer, you're already hurt. I can't have you get more hurt. I don't want to live with that. It's stupid, and there's no goddamn reason for you to get a whole lot of hurt to save a few minutes.
Conversely, it helps a lot that I do, in fact, understand a significant portion of Aspie nature because of the research that he's done and the research that I've done and the forums that I've looked at and. So it's also a case of, if you're an NT and you're dating an Aspie, do your research. Be forgiving and know that there's going to be times where they're going to basically just shut down and you're going to have to either just let it happen or you're going to have to be their comfort.
Spoon Theory, the one written for lupus, is fantastic for explaining this. I know that many of you have read it. For those of you who haven't, butyoudon'tlooksick.com is where it's located. It's called The Spoon Theory by Christine something. I don't know who you are, Christine. If you see this video, you probably won't. Thank you.
I think it's Christine something Greek.
Okay. Sure, something Greek. And it will, the low spoon days, when we use it for each other. She has a very stressful job.
And there are days where I don't have spoons, and I'm an NT who theoretically has either more spoons or
is more efficient
in my use. And there are days where I definitely hit that same point.
And
so it makes it easier to understand.
If you can have your partner read that, the term low spoons or no spoons communicates an ocean of meaning. And even if you're dead tired, broken, whatever, you say no spoon. Like, I have had days where I just couldn't function, and no spoons. And she would
sit there. I got dinner handled. I know it's been a full day for me.
Take the kiddo, yada yada yada. And that's what it's a partnership. She's had days where she's come home from work and I've said, hey, your ass is on the couch, your ass is on the computer, you're not going to think about work, you're not going to speak about work, you're just going to sit there and veg. I don't want to talk to you for an hour.
Very important point.
I just want you on that computer. I don't want you to worry about me. Kiss, love you, here's some water.
Very important point.
I had to spend 6 months learning what that looked like on her.
Yeah, that is a very important point. If you need to learn a very important phrase if you're an NT. If you have to vent, remember, Aspies solve problems. That is what their little brains do. If you just need to vent, learn this phrase. I am venting. I don't need you to solve this.
Which, by the way, she read in David Finch's book.
But if you don't say this, their little brains will tick off on that until they obsess, until they find a solution. And it will not be something necessarily that you need or want. So, remember the phrase. And this will help keep your relationship more stable. Not necessarily perfectly stable, because there's no such thing.
And strangely enough, don't take things personally.
Yes.
This sounds very weird. This is somebody you're being very vulnerable with. Somebody you're being honest with. You're dropping all the personal with, dropping the mask. They know everything about you. Don't take stuff personally. Don't take attack. If they yell at you over something and you're pissed off and you're going to yell back, fine, yell back. But don't be personal. Don't attack personally, and don't take personally. Especially the don't attack. Don't attack.
That is a very...
Your mother, you look like you're just like your mother. That's gonna get you in trouble. You know, it's like the joke I posted. Studies have shown that women who carry a little extra weight live longer than the men who mention it.
Yeah. Aspies, if you ever have a man or woman ask you this question, it's a trap. Know this is a trap.
Do I look fat in this dress?
Does my butt look big? Does this make my boobs look small? Does this do this? Does this do that?
Don't ask it. Don't answer it. It's a trap.
Those that
Admiral Akbar. It's a trap.
Those who might think to ask this, don't. It's rude. It's impolite. It's just plain nasty,
now,
and it will cause you problems.
There is a version of this phrase that works with Aspies. Honey, of these 3 dresses, which one makes my ass look the fattest?
Or which one makes me look the best?
Yes. And if you go, I don't know what best is, which one do you like on me the most?
There we go.
Because I'm horrible at fashion. I'm socially blind. I've gone dress shopping with her, and I went, well, no, you don't want that one, but I think it looks very good. And I went, it does if you're teaching middle school. And she looked at the mirror and she went, oh my God, I look like a middle school teacher. And I went, she went, how do you know what a middle school teacher looks like?
Your mother.
And I went, well, and she went, oh my God, your mother taught middle school, didn't she? And I went, yeah. That's what she wore to school. And I got about that far. And
dress was gone.
I'm not looking like your mother.
But
like, it looks, you know, had she been teaching middle school, it would have been fine. Would have been great. She would have been cool. This is for work.
So, very important things to keep in mind. NT and Aspie, both of you, both sides of the equation. Respect. Trust.
Don't be afraid of therapy.
Don't be afraid of therapy. Love. Not necessarily the largest one, but it is
an important thing. Don't give up. If you're an Aspie, you've been through
stubbornness.
Stubbornness is an Aspie trait. It can be used for good.
Yes, stubbornness.
We had a fight the other day about something. She did something, I didn't like it a lot, and we got in a huge fight on the phone. I screamed. She started crying. I screamed at her about this. It was ugly.
Awful.
It was awful. And when I calmed down, it was a few minutes later, I'm like, I gotta go find her. And she was avoiding me, and I was having none of that. And then she was like, well, maybe we shouldn't be together. I was like, don't you say that! We've been through a lot of shit together. And just the idea that she thinks that she would be anything less than everything I want. Just, now, I was angry at her for what she did. And now I was offended and angry at her for what she said. And I tracked her down, and I grabbed her in a bear hug, and I would not let her go until she stopped crying, because she started crying. And I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. I just held her. That was my stubbornness. I'm going to find my wife. I am going to do... I didn't know what I was going to do until I got there. I decided I was just going to hug her. But it was this idea of her leaving me over something in just stupid, like a dumb fight. Not going to happen. We are going to have dumb fights. We plan on having many hundreds more dumb fights. And I plan on screaming at her. Now, this sounds a little weird. It may sound a little dysfunctional. We've had to try to explain it to people, is that a lot of people don't talk about the obvious. If we're going to be in marriage for 30 years, we're going to yell at each other. Mm-hmm. We should just get that into our heads that it's going to happen, that we need to be okay with it, and move on.
But
we're going to have well, it's in the wedding promise. Richer for poorer, good times and bad. Bad times includes yelling. Yes. Good times includes movies.
And cuddle time.
And cuddle time.
So, keep in mind, if you're an NT, you're going to have some rough times. And same if you're an Aspie. And if you're two Aspies, good luck. Use that stubbornness. Use that observation skills.
I could never be with another Aspie. It's just me. Conversely, other Aspies could never be with an NT.
So
it takes a lot to make the world go.
Yeah, you have to remember, even your flaws can be used as an asset if you use it in the right way. All you have to do is think about it long enough.
Sun Tzu's The Art of War. Miyamoto Musashi's The Book of Five Rings. Bruce Lee's The Tao of Jeet Kune Do. Strangely enough, marriage advice can be found in all of them. You don't think it could be marriage advice.
After all,
all's
fair in love and war.
Love and war.
Talk to you folks later.